Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in and thanks to SiGMA for having us on. We're going to talk about designing for engagement, and to help us do that we're going to take a look at a product that we've actually not yet launched, and it's the next version of our casino named Duels. Rather than just talk about it, I'm going to try to show you some demo gameplay from our staging environment. And this will be the first time that we show this product outside of Suprnation, which makes it both really exciting and it's also a bit nerve-wracking because it is, it is a work in progress and it is a staging environment. But hopefully it will fit the topic really well, because one of the mantras during the whole development process has been engage the user. So let's jump into the game and see what we got. Alright, so as the name suggests, the concept is to match two players against each other and then let them face off in a casino duel. And the duel will have both a mix of skill and RNG. Now what we're seeing here is the lobby where all players start off from, and the whole game is set in this kind of cartoon fairy tale universe that you see. Now, to start a duel, I click this button, and the first step will be to pick which character I want to play with. In today's version, while all characters look different, they actually all function the same. But in the very near future, each character will have their own unique special abilities that you can use in the duel. And if you learn to utilize the special abilities to kind of their max potential, it'll for sure give you an edge against an opponent. Alright, now I've selected my character and the next step is to pick my arena. Now, this choice is purely a cosmetic one. The purpose is basically to give the user some variation so that they don't always have to have the same background for every fight. Kind of like you will have in games like Tekken and Street Fighter. Alright, so I picked my arena, and this choice is definitely not the cosmetic one. Now I need to pick 5 spells that I bring into battle. And the spells are kind of like weapons. And this part is for sure a strategic one, because some spells will work better in combination with other spells, and some spells will counter your opponent's spells and their attacks in different ways. But for this duel it doesn't matter so much. I'll just pick a random assortment of spells. I'll have some defensive and some offensive spells. And yeah, so now that I've clicked continue, you can see that our matchmaking engine starts looking for another player who's also searching for an opponent. And given that we're talking about a staging environment and no real users, I will be matched up against Mark for this one. And Mark will remain kind of idle throughout the duel so that we can do this demonstration the best way possible. Alright, so this is the Duel's interface. And before I start playing, I'll just do a quick run through of what we're looking at. It's kind of straightforward. So in the middle you have a slot machine, and this will serve as the foundation for the duel. The most basic attack in the duel comes from when you win in the slot. And it's the win to bet ratio that determines how much damage your attack will do. So you win 1 times your bet, you'll deal 1,000 damage. Win 2 times, you'll deal 2,000 damage, etc. And this allows us to match users of different bet and stake levels against each other, making sure that liquidity in the product is at max at all times. Alright, so around the slot I'll have a bunch of stuff that will help me both understand what's going on in the slot and influence the outcome of the duel. And we obviously have the 2 characters, my character here on the left and then Mark's character on the right. And above the slot we have the HP bars showing how much health each one has left in the duel. On the top left corner you see a timer counting down the time remaining in the duel, and the winner will be whoever manages to knock down the opponent down to 0 HP, or if the timer goes up before that happens, whoever has the most HP left will be the winner. Alright. In the bottom of the screen we have the various controls needed to actually play the game. And in the middle you have the spin button, which is the most important one. So if I click on that, the slot will spin just like that. Now the spin, it doesn't only have the potential of dealing damage directly to my opponent, but it also gains me 1 mana per spin, as seen down here in the left corner, the mana bar. And this mana is obviously needed in order to cast my various spells. And each spell will have their own cost to it. So being active and spinning will definitely give me an advantage with regards to spell casting, as you can't cast spells if you don't spin. Alright, on the right side we have some social elements, mostly aimed at taunting your opponent. So if I, for example, get a really big win or whatever, I can decide to do a dance and mark my superiority. If you're a Fortnite player, you'll definitely recognize this feature. It's very popular in Fortnite to kind of dance on an opponent when you eliminated them or something. You can also send regular emojis. So for example, if Mark gets a hit in on me, I might react with some crying faces or angry faces or whatever. And obviously, all the animations throughout this entire duel will be live streamed to both players so that they both experience the same gameplay. And speaking of gameplay, let's jump into the actual gameplay. Now we said that spinning is key, so I'm just going to start spinning. Now most slots would have an auto spin feature, but we've opted against that, and instead we force the player to spin manually every time. This is to keep the player active and engaged rather than becoming a spectator, which can happen when you have an auto spin feature. So now that I've done a bunch of spins, I have enough mana to cast some spells. In this case, I picked the Strength spell, which will cost me 8 mana. And as I choose it, you see that the spin button changes and becomes a cast spell button. So now when I click the cast spell, my character model does a spellcast animation, and now my spell is in effect. So I'm just going to keep spinning, because the effect of the Strength spell that I just cast is that it doubles any damage I get from the slot, which means if I get some good wins, I can deal a substantial amount of damage to Mark. Now obviously spinning also gives me more mana, so that I can cast even more spells. In fact, let's go ahead and cast a poison spell here. I'm going to click the poison spell and cast it. Now you can see that the poison spell immediately starts draining my opponent's HP. And the poison spell, I think it drains 12,000 HP over 2 minutes. And that way we have spells that are both linked to the slot, and we have spells that work independently without the slot, kind of directly affecting the opponent's or my own HP, and we think that's a good kind of mixture. Now of course there's a lot of RNG to whether you're going to win or lose a duel. You can always be matched up against a player who, like the first spin, he wins 150 times his bet. If that happens, there's no skill in the world that's going to save you. You're going to lose that duel. But in the vast majority of the duels, the player that is the most active and invests his mana in the best way, casting the smartest spells at the right time, will be the winner. And if you win your duel, you'll receive additional rewards. So on top of your normal kind of regular casino winnings, you also earn stars and trophies. And these, in return, they propel you up ranking leagues, and they open treasure chests, and they give you a lot of kind of benefits throughout the journey of the game. So yeah, I think what we're trying to create with this product is a balance between traditional casino and various game mechanics. All of them are aimed at more or less one thing, and that's to keep the user experience really fun and engaging throughout the whole journey. We don't know if it's going to work yet. It is still a work in progress. We haven't launched it, but we're feeling extremely excited and hopeful about the launch. And it's very fun to be in a project that is so unique for our industry. All right, that's it for the demo. Now, just hope it helps set the stage a bit, now that we're about to jump into the technical aspects of the product. But yeah, thanks for listening this far. That's it from me.
Wow, guys. I have to say that was quite a demo. That was something to see. Right. Joakim, I have a couple of questions for you from product perspective, if you don't mind, before we roll into tech with Mark, if that's okay.
No, go for it.
Right. So, looking at this, what we've just seen, first thing I need to clarify: we are on the site, right? We are still on the Duel site. So you've done an immersive experience where you don't actually migrate away from your browsing site, you don't migrate away from the games, you simply immerse yourself into what we have seen, the game within the website. So from the customer engagement perspective, take me through the thinking process. Take me through what it is that you want to achieve when we're looking at merging, quite frankly, Street Fighter attacking classical games with slot experience. You know, if we're going to talk about gamification, I think this is sort of right up there. Where does this go next?
Where it goes next?
Yeah.
Or what our thought process was? Two different questions there. Yeah, but I mean, we definitely intend to continue developing this product in the future. We don't see us letting up on that. We already have, you know, the next version and the version after that planned. Our thinking is like we always looked at gamification as probably something good to engage the user, right? But better than gamification is to actually design a game instead. So we looked at kind of what's enjoyable about slots and what's enjoyable from many other mobile games, and we tried to basically find a way of combining the two. Because I don't know anything that's more engaging than games on your phone.
No, in fact, in past experience, one thing I've always talked about, even as I teach various classes on casino management, on customer engagement, is this entertainment factor, the engagement equilibrium, where we use bonuses for this. We use various reward systems for in order to increase that engagement factor. But when we talk about gamification, so far, this is the first product I've seen where the experience isn't gamified through the frills and the add-ons here and there. I mean, you have some social elements here. I don't think we've explored that enough. You know, simply, if you're playing a game, you're not really playing a game to win money or lose money. You're playing a game to win the game itself. So I think this experience really merges that need for, I think, the ego drive, right? The need to win, the need to rank up. And one of the reasons why I've asked you what's next, tournaments, leaderboards, I imagine all of that is kind of in aspect of all of this, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we only explored the very specific moment of playing a duel. Outside of the duel, you have a lot of other things going on, all of it in the same universe. So rather than jumping in and out of different slots, you stay in the same game throughout the whole experience. So when you finish a duel, you will, if you did well, you'll be opening chests, and if you did well, you'll be seeing that you ranked up in a ranking league, and so on and so forth. So we try to kind of just fit all that into one single experience.
Amazing. All right, so look, we're talking about customer engagement here. I think this, for me, this is a completely new level of customer engagement. One thing that keeps boggling my mind as I watch this demo is the fact that we're still on the site. The fact that this, I mean, this isn't HTML5, but it is some form of HTML. This is a browser, right? I'm going to turn to Mark here, who is the Chief Technical Officer and I guess the man responsible for what we've seen develop here. How do you render this? How does this graphics work? I mean, we're still on the site. We're not loading a game independently. We're still browsing. So effectively, you created a game inside the website. How do you do that?
Yep. So as you said, I think one of our initial goals here was to make the experience more immersive. So we didn't want the customer to feel that there's a transition between the lobby and the casino game. That the lobby is in fact the casino is the game. So we've looked at 2D engines out there like Phaser and Cocos. But at the end of the day, we decided to create our own. So we created our own on top of the Pixie.js renderer. And the reason being that we wanted absolute control over memory so that we could push this like to the absolute limits. So Suprnation, since the beginning of time, were like top advocates of functional programming. So we've been using like functional programming almost since day one. We took those lessons learned, which are very common on the backend side of things, and we've implemented them also on the front end. So our 2D engine there is completely functional from the ground up.
But you've saying you've rendered your own, you've created your own 2D engine?
Yep.
This isn't off the shelf?
This is not off the shelf. We use like the Pixie.js renderer underneath.
Okay.
But we've created our own, so we didn't go with the approach of most people would actually use like either Phaser.js or like Cocos. We've went with our own.
In fact, I'm sorry to know, one of the things I want to ask, as I was looking at the demo, I want to ask whether the loading time and the rendering time is something because you're running it locally, because it's very, very smooth. In terms of animation, in terms of browsing experience, it seemed genuinely smooth.
We do some impressive tricks there. So one thing which we wanted is we wanted to stream assets on the fly. So if you can see the Iron Dungeon, for example, you can see that the background appears immediately. And then all of a sudden you see like the cages and the bats kind of animating after a while. So all the resources are being streamed in real time. So we prioritize those streams so that the user gets like an immediate response, but then the rest is kind of filled in.
So I have to jump in here. So what about the connection? If you're streaming assets, right? Slower connection, faster connection, did you allocate for that?
Yep.
Someone running on high bandwidth versus low bandwidth. And
we actually do some other nifty tricks. So I'll try to explain. So
go for it.
When we designed our engine, what you do is you basically build a description of the scene. The description of the scene and the actual execution are completely separate from one another. So what we do is we pick that description. If you're running on a low-end device, we take some of that description and we remove some details out of it. Okay. So say if you're running on a low-end device, we say like, hey, this guy cannot render particle systems, so we're not going to render your particles. If you're running on a mobile, we say like, okay, now we need to render these low-end assets instead of these high-end assets. Okay. So dealing with descriptions makes things so much easier. And I think this is quite revolutionary in the sense that we haven't seen on the backend side of things, this has been done before. On the front end, I guess we're probably one of the first.
I haven't, I'll be honest with you, I haven't really seen this done before on the backend side of things either. I mean, in video games, in animated assets, but not like this. Genuinely, hats off to you. Right, so I want to sort of go through the entire flow of what we've seen here without getting stuck on any one part. We've seen spells, right? So we've seen the dynamic of the game. I mean, playing a slot is playing a slot. We get that. Wilds, bonuses, free spins, that in itself is an engaging experience. But you've added a layer here. You've added strategy. You've added style of play. Joakim just mentioned you open some chests and things, and I imagine you hunt down for various skill sets as well, if we are to follow the mindset of how these kind of games roll out. So Could you take me through the creation of the spell assets and their interaction with what is actually happening on screen? Because I imagine they change the outcome quite drastically.
Yeah, so one thing which Joakim mentioned is if we basically were to just use the bet win ratios, the whole game still becomes like an RNG game exit. There's no strategy there. Spells add that kind of layer. The Duel's engine per se, so to create that, we created a Duel's engine, which is basically housing in all the Duel's concept. And on top of that, we built like the spells engine. Now, spells are particularly tricky. And because you have spells which take HP instantaneously, spells which take HP over a period of time, spells which give HP instantaneously or give them over a period of time.
Yeah.
But then you have other cool spells, like spells which modify the outcome, for example, like a revive spell, which when you die, it basically revives you. Or spells which are like completely nuts, like illusion
that
spell.
must completely change the algorithm. I mean, the way you produce the outcome and the way you engage customer.
So that was particularly tricky, and the way we've modeled it internally is you can see almost these spells as mathematical operators. They have like precedence rules, they have associativity and commutativity, and you basically do like the same as you would do with algebra, for example, like or arithmetic, where you have the BODMAS rules, like brackets, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, kind of. So the Duel's engine, what it does, it takes all the spells which are active at that point in time, and it basically resolves them as an equation. And that equation cannot change over time, right? That if you have the same number of spells, the result needs to be the same. And I'll give you an example where things get tricky, right? So me and Joakim are dueling. Joakim is on 100 HP, but Joakim casts a healing spell, and I cast a poison spell. So
healing spell refills your health bar?
Exactly.
Or completely?
So Joakim is trying to refill his health bar, say 100 HP for the next 30 seconds. Each second he's going to get 100 HP. I, on the other hand, I'm trying to kill him with 100 HP every second for the next 30 seconds.
And he's on his last 100 HP, if I understood this right.
Exactly. So
which one
now
comes first?
the order of things really becomes important. Because if his spell goes first, he's going to live another round. If my spell goes first, I get to kill him and finish him. And this is where you start seeing like the order becomes tricky.
So how did you resolve that? Is it chronological? Is it based on a millisecond of click? What happens if two people click the spell at exactly the same time?
So, to solve that, we actually had to write our own kind of messaging infrastructure as well, because most messaging infrastructures there are based on some partition key, which typically is a user ID. What we wanted to do is we wanted to create a duel which is absolutely fair. So me and Joakim, if we're battling in real time, we didn't want to process like say Joakim's messages before my messages and bias the outcome. So it involved quite a lot of tricky things with messaging there.
So this sounds like a lot of proprietary technology. I've genuinely have never seen something like this developed on front end. We've chatted briefly about, in fact, Joakim and I have chatted about engaging a customer because I've known Suprnation to be quite ahead of the curve on that. But then I mean, this really takes it to the next level. Well done to you both. I want to we only have a few minutes left, and I want to sort of bring this back to what this means for customer engagement. So it's more to this than just winning a duel, right? You've mentioned that you win some prizes, so I imagine there's a social aspect to this. I also imagine there's some sort of an achievement strategy that you've wanted to explore. So I'm wondering, from product perspective, where does Joakim's and yours, where has that concept taken you so far? So where do you see this going, and what you've built in order to sustain that customer engagement on an ongoing basis?
Is this a question for me or Mark?
Well, I mean, since you're the product, this is your brainchild, I guess for you, but Mark can chime in. Any point?
All right. Well, like you said, social is extremely important, I believe. I think I was on a panel 4 or 5 years ago for another event, and I back then believed that social is the next kind of big revolution in iGaming, and I still believe that. And it's just very hard to create anything that is social when it's just slots, because it's kind of a solitary experience, right? So what we have now is we have the foundation for something that can truly become social, I think. So you find the users that actually enjoy this product, and you let them connect with each other, and you let them message each other, and you let them challenge each other, and so on. Then you have something that, you know, where the social element actually makes sense, because it doesn't make sense to have a social element for me when I'm sitting and playing a normal slot.
No.
So yeah, we think social is definitely an avenue that we'll be exploring quite heavily.
But it's a matter of establishing some sort of rank as well. It's you know, I'm looking at this from a social perspective. I'll duel against you, as you said. I mean, I like to play slots. I've been in the industry for a long time. I've gotten hooked on slots purely by testing all the products that come up, and I started really enjoying them. I've never really considered playing this as, you know, sharing the experience. I like other products that we have in the industry. So I've looked into this kind of experience where I'll be dueling against someone, where I'll be dueling against you, and I can't imagine myself just publishing my ranking and wanting to comment in forums and wanting to sort of establish my standing in terms of my skill set toward playing, which is not something I would have associated with a slot game up until now.
Yeah.
At all.
No, but it's quite funny. It's funny because usually when we do testing of a product in house, like in Suprnation, it's very specific. Like, do this task and you know, run through the motions. The testing during the Duels project has been an internal weekly tournament where we get everyone involved and playing a tournament. Which is a lot more fun than normal testing, I'll tell you that. And I don't see a reason, like, okay, like we said, this product hasn't been launched yet. We don't know if it's going to be super successful, medium successful, or not successful at all. But I believe it has its audience, and the people that like this, they will probably, you know, keep playing it for a while. And I don't see a reason why you wouldn't run, you know, for example, Swedish championships. I'm Swedish, so I'm going to go with Sweden. Why wouldn't you run Swedish championships in duels? Or why wouldn't you, you know, run various battles between friends groups or whatnot?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if this is the thing, I was watching this and I started looking at where this, I started looking at where this can go and where this can take us. And it's true, the tournaments, but also you have the type of games where you have multiple players playing against groups. We have those games where we play simply taking turns. I forgot what type of game that is exactly, but each player will take a turn doing hits. You have area of effect spells, you have specific attack spells. As much as I can see this working on tournaments, I can also see this expanding onto multiplayer, multitude of players playing against each other. One thing I want to ask you to sort of close this off is, you've developed your own game for this. Have you considered applying this to third-party content, expanding this?
Well, we are collaborating with Relax on this game. So the math is implemented on Relax underlying engine, and we do the entire front end part of the slot part. We are absolutely not against collaborating with other third-party suppliers. The only condition for us is we're not willing to compromise our experience for the user. We're not willing to compromise on kind of where buttons go in order to be perfect for the user and so on. So just sticking a third-party slot into this, no, we're not going to do that. But slot providers who can consider collaborating with us the way Relax has done, we're super happy to work with them. Yeah.
No, I think you've come across something completely new here. Well done. Guys, thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And this is very enjoyable for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a lovely day.